They're 4 seconds late. All right. Hey, Blasphemers, hang tight. We got Brian Blush as our guest, and we are about to start right now. Hey, Blasphemers, welcome to Simple Blasphemy, where we have the best times with the worst topics.
We're 3 friends that discuss everything and nothing, from wacky headlines to games and trivia. All subjects bizarre and risque are on the table.
Our weekly guests range from friends, musicians, and artists to professionals in a variety of industries.
We go live on Facebook and YouTube every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Want to support the show? Join our Patreon. You can find it and more at www.simpleblasphemy.com.
So grab a drink and join in!
It's too late now. This is Simple Blasphemy.
All right. Welcome to the Simple Blasphemy podcast, all you blasphemers out there. My name is Zach Ward, and I have here with me always Andy's.
I'm one of the only people in the world not disappointed by Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, boy. I have here with me always also Mr. Zach Green.
Man, I really don't like my fucking voice on that fucking intro. I don't like listening to myself at all. And I have to do that every goddamn week.
It's fine. Just earmuffs.
It fucking sucks, as do I.
All the info on this show can be found at simpleblasphemy.com. And if you click the like, share, or subscribe button, you'll receive 5 years of good luck. So, yeah, here we go. As mentioned, our guest today is Brian Blush, the guitarist from the Refreshments. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well. Thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah. Usually we kind of we dig into like some kind of crazy interview questions, and I'm gonna spare. We have so much ground to cover. I'm gonna spare the vast majority of that. But I do have one question for you. What is the worst job you've ever had?
Wow. That's a long list. I mean, it would be hard to decipher the top 3. Probably the worst one that I had was counting frozen food from a food delivery company. They were called S.E. Rykoff, and their motto was "Enjoy life, eat out more often." Right. Huh. But anyway, I had to count frozen vegetables in a warehouse in Phoenix. So it's 110 outside. And I had to wear a snowmobile suit on the inside because it was about 20 below. So
no equilibrium whatsoever.
Yeah, it was miserable.
A bipolar work environment.
Yeah. I mean, I would come in off the street and, at that time I had this Nissan Pulsar that barely ran. No air.
Holy shit.
So I'd walk in dripping with sweat, and they would hand me this like Arctic parka. And I'm like, are you crazy? I mean, it's 110 outside. Let me in there, And
Reach yourself up and get in here.
The minute you get inside there and it's 20 below, about 30 seconds later, you're thanking the Lord for that. So.
Oh my God, Dad Brain wants to wonder how expensive their cooling bill is.
Oh, it had to be insane. I mean,
my God.
It was like, frozen corn and succotash and all that stuff that they sent out to restaurants. They were restaurant food delivery. They sold stuff to places where you would order the side of corn and the corn would come from them, But
around here we have one called
miserable. I quit. Actually, I didn't quit. I just stopped going. It's like in workspace. I'm like, I'm just not going to go anymore.
All right. So to continue with our formalities, folks, we thank you for tuning in, and we like to give a shout out to the top 5 countries that listen to our audio version only of the podcast.
We actually got context for that too, and I'm not going to even spoil it for anybody.
What?
The context for India.
Oh, so Yeah, top 5 countries coming in at number 1, growing at 84% now is India. Thank you, everybody in India.
Believe it.
I love me some tandoori.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Thank you, India.
Thank
Once
you,
again.
India.
United States, Canada, and Russia is the and Germany honorable mentions.
Spasiba
And I also thank you.
to the Russians out
No, talk to that. Wait.
there.
And lastly, the last order of business on our whatever you want to call this, we like to give a shout out, and the shout out comes from Tanner Wirtz.
Squirt.
Hey guys, Tanner Wirtz here. I want to give a big shout out to Gibson Guitars because a couple years ago they made a guitar that tunes itself, and as you can see, some people need a guitar that plays itself.
Okay.
Okay.
Some
I
people
want that poster in the background, Tanner.
Yeah. All right. For the moment you've been waiting for, we're going to get down and dirty or down together or however you want to say it with Brian here and kind of explore. And just for some people that have heard of the Refreshments or even haven't heard of the Refreshments, there is a documentary that is out there. I'm just going to throw this up now because we're not going to do a deep dive just into the Refreshments because a lot of that is covered in the documentary Here's to Life. There is a link in the YouTube description and Facebook description that takes you to the Amazon where you can rent that for like $4. And it's a great documentary, and there's almost not a whole reason to kind of backtrack, but we want to learn more about Brian. So let's see here. How shall we start? I don't know. I thought I had notes, and I do. Brian, can you bring us back to when you started playing guitar, how that came about?
Well, I can tell you this. The first time I became interested in the guitar as an instrument, I was very young. I would have to say I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And my mom had given my dad a guitar for his birthday, and it was a Sears. It wasn't the cool like Silvertone. It was like this weird tobacco sunburst. It had a tortoiseshell pickguard on it. I can remember it clear as day, but it was just stuck in the closet. And every time I looked at it, I'm like, even as a kid, I'm like, that's so cool. And I wanted to know more about it, you know? And that's what originally got me interested in the guitar. It was just even back then, I just thought it looked super cool. So as the years passed, I got into, let's see, it would have been junior high school. And I had started taking lessons. I think it was in 5th or 6th grade. And this is at the time where I didn't go to a music store. There was this sort of hippie dude that lived in a trailer that taught guitar.
Nice.
Everybody
Yeah,
knows
so
one of those.
I got me and my best friend, this guy named Jeff Havitz, he and I would take lessons together with this sort of, 70s, straight up 70s dude, roach in the ashtray when we came over kind of guy. But he turned us on to some great music right off the bat. We started out with like the Eagles and some of the early Van Halen stuff. And once I realized I could actually play, when I could finally make a bar chord, I'm like, you know what?
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool, man. I want to keep going with it.
It's a great feeling.
The defining moment.
Oh
Yeah. And when I made that F bar chord and it rang all the way through for the first time, I'm like, yeah, I can do this,
I'm not going to lie. I think one of my first recollections was playing Sweet Leaf. When I learned
nice. Yeah, that's great.
I had a cassette of like Black Sabbath's greatest hits from like Columbia House or something.
Right.
Something along those lines, but that was for some reason the song for me. So what were some early albums that really changed you,
Well, if we're going to go back deep.
Yeah, back.
When I was a kid, the first band that I really kind of fell in love with, and it was probably because of television, really, was the Monkees. And I was a huge Monkees fan. I mean, I was obsessed with them when I was in second and third grade. And what happened from there is I heard a Beach Boys song, and I thought it reminded me a little bit of that kind of Monkees fun, kind of clean guitar. I didn't know at the time about tones and, you know, moods and all that, but I just really liked it. So I became a Beach Boys fan. And this is before the age of probably 12. When I entered like junior high school, I remember hearing the Queen single, We Are the Champions and We'll Rock You. And that, when I heard that bit at the end of We Will Rock You, Brian May on that guitar, I'm like, yeah, I want to do, if I could make that sound, that would be rad. So that was a defining moment. But then also, I grew up on the east side of Detroit, Michigan, and a lot of the music that was on the AOR, the rock stations in Detroit, was things like AC/DC and, you know, Black Sabbath and Iron Maiden and Boston and all these great guitar bands. And that really, I just fell in love with the guitar. The first time I heard Diary of a Madman, I melted. I'm like, how did they do that? I was so fascinated with the attitude and the it just blew my mind, and I wanted to figure out how to do that. I set out on the path to learn how.
So before we jump a little further into that, and just to give a nod to the Monkees, did you ever play the nose harp?
I never did play the nose harp.
That was for Julio as well.
I have played Last Train to Clarksville several times in my career.
So, okay, you found these sounds started to move you, and now you've taken a few lessons. So what's like the next step? How are you learning about better gear, amplifiers, things like that?
Well, I was still kind of on the fence about whether I would, you know, guitar would be a thing throughout the course of my life. But one defining moment was I remember the junior high school talent show, and the you know, it was like people playing hot cross buns and whatnot on the piano. It was pretty corny, but at the end there was this band, and they played Paranoid by Black Sabbath. And at that point, I saw all the girls were going crazy, and it just again, it blew my mind. I'm like, yeah, how do I get on stage and do that? So that led me to seek the knowledge to learn how to do it, you know, to make, first of all, make that kind of noise. And then secondly, you know, round up some people and become a band and get out there and do it, you know. So
Les Pauls are the majority of what you're playing, or you've been seen to play, at least
Yes.
with the Refreshments. So did that come from Randy Rhoads then, or?
Actually, this side.
Yeah.
This is my Randy Rhoads. This is a Randy Rhoads custom right here.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of players that I could never play like Randy Rhoads, but he the attitude of his, just his attack and the note selection and the speed, I just remember marveling at that. And I'm like, it did something to me. It just like scrambled my brain. I'm like, that is so cool, man. How's he doing that? And it set me on a path to try to figure out how.
So what was, we were talking a little bit earlier, and how your approach is always to kind of accent the song. In other words, kind of dip it in chocolate, pour sprinkles on, you know,
right,
a separate melody or an accompanying melody. What got you into being able to do that? And also, like, how did you realize you could be a lead guitar player rather than just a rhythm one?
Okay, that's a lot of ground there. Let me start.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate it, Zach.
Sorry.
Right. No. The first half of the question. Tell me the first half of the question again. I'm sorry.
The first half of the question was, how did you basically learn the craft of soloing and your approach to single note rather than just bar chord? Basically, was what I was trying to get at.
Okay.
What did the inside of your cocoon look like when you became a lead guitarist?
well,
Expand your mind.
First the earth cooled.
Yes. The
Not
wings
the
will
easiest-
dry out.
It's not the easiest thing to teach somebody how to like the art of soloing.
I
'Cause
think.
I remember that. Yeah, it was a weird thing.
How many people have
I
come
don't
up
think
to you
I-
and said, "Teach me how to solo, man"?
I don't think I ever set out to be a lead guitar player. What really, touched my spirit, was the way singers would emote certain feelings and they would emphasize certain words in songs. And what I realized very quickly is that I had no ability to sing whatsoever. And I thought, well, I play guitar. If I can listen to a song, whether I've written it or not, but if I can listen to the storyline and then bring in on the guitar what I'm feeling to accent the emotion of the lyric, at that specific moment, I think that's, it took a long time to come to that idea, but that's ultimately what I wanted to do, was to not just double the other guitar player and then step away and play a pentatonic lead for 8 bars in the middle. I just, when I heard the singer sing the song, I tried to sing along with them, but on the guitar.
Like a duet, almost.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
totally.
like a duet, like you're singing a duet.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, maybe not so much a duet, but more like I was the punctuation on the emotion of the lyric.
I was going to say something like you were the soundtrack to the script of the lyrics.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good way of saying it. I mean, that maybe overplaying it a little, but I just, when I heard a certain line that gave me goosebumps, I had to do something on the guitar to emphasize that, and ultimately that developed into my style. It wasn't all at once. It took a long time to get there, but that's, I love getting goosebumps when I hear, and I wanted to create goosebumps with my input, with my guitar.
So speaking of creating goosebumps, do you recall, because I mean, a lot of guys start playing in bands for different reasons. One of my reasons was free beer, and when I was a high school student,
Right.
Do you recall the first time that you gave? Was there a first girl that got goosebumps from and noticed you because of being a guitar player?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Shucky darn!
I'd be lying if I said I didn't do this to get chicks. I mean, that's probably the first motivating factor was to get the attention of the good-looking ladies. And, I mean, of course, I was really young then, so I hadn't yet understood how a song could touch you and like bring you through a tough time. I just hadn't had that life experience yet. The first thing was getting chicks, for sure. That was my motivation.
So were you in any bands or anything in Detroit at all? Was there a music thing there?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I didn't play in any bands prior to the time that I left Detroit to come to Arizona. After I graduated from high school, I moved to Tempe, Arizona to go to Arizona State. Before that, I had not played out in bars or whatever. I was just in high school, but I had been playing the entire, since I was whatever, 12 years old or whatever. So I knew how to play guitar. When I came out to Arizona to go to college, and when I got here, you can't help but your first time away from home, you want to go a little wild and go out to the bars and see what was happening and stuff. And I remember my friends taking me to see this reggae band Walt Richardson and Morningstar. They're heroes in Tempe, Arizona. But I was so blown away by the live music vibe. I hadn't really ever experienced that yet, you know.
That had to be cool.
Those guys were my first exposure to that. And I'm like, how cool would life be if I could, you know, every weekend get up here in this bar and do that and have all these people out here dancing. And so that, you know, that kind of set me on I was still kind of aiming at school at that point, but that certainly made me look at a different way to live my life, you know.
So did you move out yourself to Arizona, or did the whole family move out?
No, it was, well, I mean, I came here to go to college. I came out with a friend of mine from the Detroit area. You know, we were roommates the first year of college. But I came to Arizona specifically to go to school, not to join a rock band. I wasn't developed enough yet as a player or as a human being to really understand what that meant. I had never seen it really up close in a mind-blowing kind of way. When I saw Morningstar, I'm like, how do you do that for your life? You know, that's what I want to do with my life.
So why did you actually choose Arizona? What was that? I mean, you sitting in Detroit? It's like, where do I want to go? Arizona.
Well, there's sunshine. There's sunshine in Arizona, which was a big plus. But I had never, you know, it sounds crazy, but I got accepted to UC Santa Barbara, Michigan State, and Arizona State for college. And I hate to say it, but it came down to the fact that I'd never been to Arizona. So I'm like, let's roll the dice. Let's go to Arizona and see what's up. And so that's how I ended up here.
That's pretty neat.
So before we move into that direction, you're in Detroit. You went to high school. Now, Zach Green grew up in Detroit. Was there a high school that he was on 8 Mile, right? Or where were you at, Zach?
You were in the city.
Well, yeah, I was right off of 7 Mile, just north of 7 Mile, between 7 and 8, closer to 7. I went to St. Jude's.
On the east side or the west side?
East side.
Okay, yeah.
East side.
Near him,
and then because my parents didn't want to send me to Denby because I'd be killed, so they somehow got me into Notre Dame High School in Harper Woods.
So now that we've established all of this,
but no, I'm sorry, really quick. What section did you live in the east side of Detroit?
I lived in Warren when I was young. Okay. I lived in Warren, 13 Mile in Chicago Road.
Oh, I know exactly. That's by my favorite brewery. Yeah, I know exactly.
By the tech center there.
Yep, yep. I know exactly where that's at.
Yeah. So that was my. I mean, I wasn't really in the city, but I was just north of the city. You know, 8 miles of dividing line. I lived at 13 miles, so a couple miles north of the city. But
I had friends, you know, that weren't allowed to go past 13 Mile to come.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're not going to Zach's house.
Now, only when I was a kid, that was a fairly safe line. It's a little sketchy down there now, but I love Detroit, man. Props to my Detroit people.
So really quickly, I forgot to say, we have decided, I was talking to Andy earlier, that we're calling this happy hour. So cheers to everybody. Brian approved. Cheers. It's always happy hour here.
Give me 1 second. I have to fill my coffee cup up to cheers you guys. Hold on.
Oh, please do.
Be right back.
So Green, also like music wise, right? Was there a lot of concerts come? That's the next question I was going to ask Brian before we pivot to the Arizona years. But the concerts coming through, like
so many places to see.
Where were these? Is it Harpo's? Where were the shows?
Well, Harpo's was like one of them. But I mean, even before that, there was places like right down Gratiot, Tracks. It's just south of 7 Mile, and just all these little fucking hole in the wall.
Tracks and Harpo's, yeah, I remember those bars. Yeah,
you know, then if you want to get out of the city, there's places like the Ritz and stuff that was a big concert venue.
Cheers, everybody! It's always happy hour here. That's what I say. All right, we're still in Detroit really quickly. Brian, was there any concerts that went through Detroit that you got to see?
Yeah, I was actually just about to mention that when you guys said Harpo's. I saw a band called The Outfield at Harpo's. You guys
That's when Joni was on a vacation.
Yeah, and I love that band. I mean, this was probably, I might have come back from college at that point. I'm not sure, but when I was in high school and stuff, I was obviously too young to get into the bars to see bands live. But when I've been back and forth there, Harpo's was one of those. When I saw the Outfield play live, I'm like, oh my God, I got to do this. I was starting to do it a little bit at that point professionally, but that really drove it home, that I wanted to do this for my life.
Where did they play in Detroit area? Outfield.
Remember those guys?
Yeah, where when they came through Detroit, when you seen them, what place did they play?
Harpo's.
They played Harpo's, no shit.
Yeah, I saw them at Harpo's. Yeah.
At least in my later age, that was always like the hard rock fucking place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably like
earlier.
That record come out, I don't know, late 80s maybe. And it was sort of an, Harpo's was the heavy metal joint.
Mm-hmm.
They played there and I'm like, I got to see that. And they were amazing, man. They really did. They were amazing.
I saw, just a quick side note, I saw Ronnie James Dio and Yngwie Malmsteen at Harpo's.
Nice.
you did.
Rising Force.
Yeah, in front of each other. And just to let the people get an idea of that. Also, if you're tuning in, we got people in the chat. You're more than welcome to say hi or send a message. The chat messages pop up on our screen and we can put you on.
Talk to me, people.
Yeah, talk to it. We got some questions, and you're more than welcome to fire some questions away to Brian. All right, we're out of Detroit. We're going to Arizona. You're going to college, and what type of major were you pursuing at that point? Was it like art, or was it?
No, I started out when I first went there. I mean, I really had no aspirations. And to be honest, to go to college, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I wanted to do. Other than music, nothing had really ever moved me to sort of like set my life in a particular direction. But when I got to Arizona, I started having these experiences with live music. One of my early ones was with Walt Richardson and Morningstar. At that point, I started a college cover band called Ritual, and we played, REM songs and Cure songs and U2 and it was a college kind of rock band. This is in the late 80s, early 90s. And we started to get really big. I mean, this band we were young. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we weren't half bad. Ritual is a pretty cool band. But we started getting these huge crowds around that area, but we were just a cover band at that time. And what finally really kicked me in the ass and made me say, I want to do my own thing. Friends had been bugging me to go see this band called the Gin Blossoms. And they were a Tempe band that was playing, little dive bars around here. Finally, when I wasn't even old enough to get in the bar, but I snuck into the Sun Club, this place called the Sun Club. And when I saw the Gin Blossoms doing their own music and just, I mean, the cool scene, people were dancing to it. It was life-changing. I'm like, at that point, it was set in stone. That's what I want to do. And I'm going to do whatever I can to be a part of that,
And about what year would that be?
This is probably 92, 91, 92, maybe.
So many famous bands came out of that area. Like you said, the Gin Blossoms. What else was the music scene like? And we had big...
It was an amazing music scene. It was a very sort of alt-rock Americana,
post-grunge kind of a thing.
You could walk down Mill Avenue, which is kind of the main drag by Arizona State there, and every bar had this great music coming out of it. It was kind of jangly and a little different than what I was maybe used to hearing on the radio. It wasn't AC/DC, it wasn't heavy metal, but it was this really great
rock and roll.
Melodic music, and it was original, which blew my mind. I'm like, these people are writing these songs, and that's where there was a sea change in my head at that point. Like, not only can I do this and maybe have a semi-comfortable life playing covers and whatnot, but you can actually write songs, and people will give you the time of day to listen to them around here. And that excited me.
Yeah. Why wouldn't it?
So speaking on that,
like a hungry mass that wants to absorb your stuff is amazing.
I mean, I was so jealous of those guys that were up there doing it already. I'm like, how do I get up there?
So just because of the time frame, we're talking about the 90s, and all of us here grew up in that time period.
Yeah.
What was your idea or your thoughts on the whole grunge Seattle thing at that point? Being that, you're just coming into your own, you're figuring out that you want to be in a band and make your own music, but halfway across the country to the west, there's this explosion.
Well, I remember when
was spandex ever on the table for you in a band? Or?
That's a funny question, because I wouldn't look particularly good in spandex, but there was probably a time in my younger days when I just wanted to be famous. I cared less about the music as I did about the fame. I probably would have tried something like that when I was younger. But once I ran into bands like the Gin Blossoms, I'm like, you can be yourself and just do the shit. And that set me, if I wasn't in love with it already, that closed the deal right there. You can wear your ripped up jeans and your t-shirt and go out and play songs that mean something to you.
You mean I don't have to wear makeup? This is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I understand it's showbiz.
Oh yeah, right.
I've got a lot of respect for bands that made it like that. But it was different than, I wasn't really built like that. I was more of a Americana kind of alt country guy, I guess, because that's the stuff that when I heard it really, it really struck a chord with me.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your thoughts on at that time period of the grunge thing with the Pearl Jam and
Pearl Jams and your Alice's in Chains is.
I was not a huge grunge fan. I mean, Nirvana to me is amazing. I still marvel at those guys. I was a punk fan too. I was listening to Black Flag and, the Adolescents and, Suicidal Tendencies and all that stuff. So I had, when I was a younger guy, when that feeling hits you, like you want to rage against the man and the world, that music really touched me. And Nirvana, I thought was, especially the early Nirvana stuff, was amazing. They got a little feeling, Kurt got a little feeling sorry for himself at the end, but the music was so compelling. And the chord changes were interesting. The lyrics were unusual. All of that stuff sort of stirred the artist in me. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I liked them. I mean, even like Alice in Chains, people give them shit, but I thought they were a pretty cool band. Some of that stuff I could relate to.
I love them.
Yeah. So,
all right. So folks, a lot of you have been hanging out this long and probably want us to talk a little bit about the Refreshments. So we might as well dive into it just a pinch. And I have my little show and tell, my little Refreshments vinyl.
That's the vinyl, baby. That's
So
our
awesome,
second vinyl.
awesome album cover.
Yeah, I do.
I love airplane art.
Who made the album cover then? I guess that's a good question.
I should know the name of the guy because he's a famous guy. He painted. You guys remember the movie? What's it called? The 50s rock and roll movie, American Graffiti.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah! God,
You remember the album that came out? Remember the album that came out? It was like a double fold, and it had a chick on roller skates with like
Yeah. Yeah.
outside of a diner. The same guy that made that
Yeah.
image created the image for
Wow.
Fizzy Fuzzy. Yeah,
God damn, small world, man.
Now, I do
I
think
know.
for the purists, I believe this was added on afterwards. That I don't-
Yeah, I think that's Rogers' edition post refreshments. I'm cool with that.
Oh, I'm down with it. Shit.
Those guys got a bunch. Those guys got 2 refreshments in the band, so that's cool.
So take us back to the beginning. Here's a great picture. I think one of the earlier promo pictures, if I'm not mistaken.
That picture was taken for Musician Magazine.
Okay.
Yeah, we had been signed about maybe a month before, and they do an article called New Signings, and that picture was taken for that article.
So the guys, let's see, Roger and Buddy and Dusty.
Yeah. Well, Dusty's the original drummer.
Yeah, that was the first group or so. And were they looking for another guitar player? And then how did that happen with you?
That's kind of a funny story. The Roger and Buddy and Dusty already had this 3-piece band together, right? And they were, Roger had a band before all of this called the Mortals that I loved. I thought they were great, but that band couldn't draw flies. I don't know why. They were an incredible band. And I became a fan of Roger. Every Tuesday night, I would go see them at this place called Edsel's Attic. And I was a big fan of the Mortals, but they just never took off, and they kind of faded away, I guess. But then I threw a party at my house one night for kind of like some, the scene people. And Roger showed up, and he and I got to talking. And he said, I'm working with the couple of guys right now doing this band. And I was laying compliments on him for these great songs that he wrote in the Mortals. And he said, well, why don't you come down and jump in and see, let's just see how it goes,
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was in a band that was widely disliked by the scene because we were super popular, but people thought we didn't deserve it, whatever it was. But people in other bands kind of had a negative view of this band that I was in. And so when I originally showed up to play with those guys, I already felt a little behind the 8 ball, but Buddy kicked off with this song called Carefree, and I just started playing that riff straight from the hip. I'm like, I'm gonna let it flow. And after we finished Carefree, we all decided that this should be a band, and that's where it went from there.
So what else do you recall from that first band practice? I mean, was it like you're in, or this feels way too comfortable?
Well, I was amazingly excited because I had always, after seeing the Gin Blossoms, I had always wanted to be in a band that I thought would be respected. Not that August Red wasn't respected. We had a lot of fans, and we played a bunch of great places. But for some reason, it seemed to me like people turned their nose up at us. And I was always such a fan of like the Mill Avenue scene that I wanted to be in a band that scene thought was good, Mm-hmm. And the first, like from the downbeat of Carefree, I'm like, holy shit, we got a cool band right here, When we finished that, I was so excited. Of course, I'm still trying to get in this band, so I didn't say anything. But I waited. I think at the end of the practice, they're like, well, yeah, we should do this, But
Like, oh, geez, guys, maybe it might happen.
I was nervous. I was nervous because I respected Roger Clyne as a songwriter. And of course, Buddy Edwards is my favorite bass player that's ever lived. And Dusty was such a character and such a big, good-hearted guy. I just wanted to be a part of it, So I really hoped that what I had put out there would convince those guys to let me on board, and they did. So
now, I know we would love to have you and Buddy on here one day if that ever happens. But since he's not here and there isn't a whole lot of information about him, how did you find out about him? And do you know what I mean? Like, did you hear? Was there a backstory on how he became a bass player?
Well, it's kind of interesting because Buddy Edwards was the bass player in a band called the Soul Mines.
Okay.
And that was a local band here in Tempe that was they were one of the upper echelon bands. And the singer I'm working with now, this guy, Jim Gerke, was Buddy's singer. So there's this network of people that have played together in Tempe. And for some reason,
I like that you call it network.
yeah, it was incestual. I hate to say
That's okay. See, because that's how I always say it. So, we have this really incestuous band thing going on around here.
It was. I mean, everybody kind of sat in with each other's band at some point, and where the chips landed, they just kind of did. But I was
It's a spice rack.
I was a huge fan of Roger's band pre-Refreshments, so when I was asked to join the band, I was over the moon. I was very excited.
All right, so where did you guys where were you guys practicing at as the first beginning of the Refreshments? Was there someone's house?
The first Refreshments, which was Dustin Denham, Dusty, Arthur Edwards, Buddy, Brian Blush, that's me, and Roger Clyne, the singer and rhythm guitar player. Our rehearsal space was Dusty's basement. There's very few houses in Arizona that have a basement. This place is made out of sand, so like they can't ever set a basement without the sand collapsing in. It's hard to put a basement in Arizona.
Every house moves 3 feet per year.
Yeah, but Dusty's house had a basement, so that was our lair. That's where we practiced. That's where we played cards together. That's where we drank together, and
that's where you hit out against the graboids from the movie Tremors.
Right, yeah. I could easily see a Tremors scenario happening in Arizona.
Wall of shotguns.
Elephant gun.
Elephant gun. I remember that was the coolest part of that movie. Awesome.
Totally.
So Carefree is second to last on the side 2 of this album that made you guys really get noticed. Was there, as you're going through the songs, was there something that just you felt like, man, this is just a little too good to be true? The lyrics are hitting, the music's hitting.
I think the first time that we played Nada all the way through, I mean, it's not a hit song or a single by any stretch. It's the last song on the record.
I see what you did there.
But when I listened to the path, the story of the storyteller in the song, whoever is the main character of the song, sort of traveling this stormy path of life to an ultimate destination, I'm like, wow, this is not just a kind of a novelty Jean-Luc Picard rock band. This is a real band that has things to say.
So that's a really good point, because my buddy Al, who's probably watching here today, often when people say the Refreshments here in Northwest Ohio, it comes up. First of all, I've gotten the request for Mexico is the only song I've ever got requests for playing, which is really interesting because it's like, hey, listen, there really isn't a whole lot of lyrics here for one guy, and there isn't a whole lot for one person to do per se.
Sure.
The Jean-Luc Picard thing, when you first heard that song, did you think, what was your thoughts on it? Because everyone remembers it for that, but standing back, you'd be like, hey, dude, come on, man. I'm a Star Wars fan. Can we change it to like Yoda?
Right. I would say two things. I would say it both elated me and concerned me, because it elated me because it was such a great little catchphrase that tied in with everybody knows that the world is full of stupid people. I mean, these were like mantras, you know. They were, to me, they made me laugh, but they also made me go, yeah. But it also gave me a little bit of concern that we would be considered a novelty band, you know. It would be a novelty song, and I don't
like a meme, you know.
I don't ever believe that a single is necessarily a band's best song. It's the song that you hope will hit the most people to turn on to the band, and I thought it was that because of that line. So I was happy we chose it as a single, and I mean, you know, Raj wrote a hell of a lyric. I mean, it still gets played. So
Yes, it does.
So, but believe it or not, in karaoke bars, nonetheless.
Yes, it does.
They do. I've actually seen people perform at karaoke, which is to me is a huge compliment. I'm always amazed that people.
That's a degree of immortality, right there.
Unless it gets karaoke, you have not yet arrived.
Yeah, right.
Really quick, we have David Thomas says this man is a riff writing legend.
Dave Thomas from Mishawaka, Indiana. What's up, Dave?
Andy and Zach can tell you I've gotten better not being too much of a fanboy. The first couple of times we've had people that I really respect.
Dude, if you fanboy out, I'm cool with it. I mean, that makes me
Dude, there's nothing wrong with being a fanboy, man.
That's
what you love.
That's a huge compliment. I appreciate it.
So, being a fanboy and kind of just steering the ship a little bit, Wheelie was album EP. I wouldn't say it was an EP, I guess, but you guys released that in 1994. So, what was the experience that you remember? Obviously, what was happening between that and then actually making Fizzy Fuzzy Big and Buzzy?
Well, I would say, you know, what started out, Wheelie started out as, you know, the band started getting some attention in our live gigs. Like, people started coming to see us, and then we made the psychic jump, if you will, to saying we need to give people something to go home with, so they can, if they like the songs, they can put them on when they get home, you know, sing along to them, and that'll help us in the long run. So we decided to make a record of songs that were probably 50% Mortal songs, which was, you know, Dusty and Raj and Buddy before the Refreshments, and then 50% songs that we had written since we'd been together. So we set out to do that. We set out to record that, and there was a record shop, a used record store in town here, really great place called Zia Records. You know, memories to Brad Singer. Brad Singer was the owner and creator of Zia Records, and he started a label called Epiphany Records, and we were his very first signing. And we, at that time, were hitting this wave of, like, people were really digging the band, so we're like, I don't know if we should sign to an indie right now. But we made a deal with Brad Singer to say, all right, he will front us the money to record the album and release the album. And when we pay him back for the expenses, we both get half, right? 50% after they recoup their expenses. So that's what we did. We released it on his label, Epiphany Records, and people went apeshit for it. I mean, we couldn't believe it. We really were. I'm still blown away by how people went after that record. It was a lot like when the Gin Blossoms released Dusted, their first local release. The first week Wheelie came out, we outsold Pearl Jam Versus and the Beatles. the Beatles one record. We outsold them in Tempe, which is unheard of. You know, I mean, totally unheard of.
You beat
So
Free as a Bird?
We were laughing. We were laughing. We're like, we're having a great time being sort of our drunken young selves around each other and having a ball. And things were really happening for us. So it was.
So let me ask you.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
Just to dive back into your memory banks, you guys put out the album Wheelie.
Yes.
That really, really helped because people started to not only, like you said, it worked. People were singing the songs. We're getting more people come to the shows. We have this, local record deal happening. What was the band meetings like at that point? I mean, if you watch the documentary, and I encourage everybody to do so, it's really, really good. And Alice Cooper's on it as well. Just to try to throw a little candy on there.
Yeah. Hollywood Vampires, baby.
Yeah.
Love you, David.
Saw them a couple years ago, believe it or not.
Yeah.
My question to you is, what were those band meetings like? Like, hey, something's really happening. Buddy, was he still like all in the band at that point? Because if you watch the documentary, he ended up becoming an author and kind of wanted to not be a touring guy.
That's let me interrupt you there just because I want to correct you on one thing. In the beginning, Buddy was gung ho. He couldn't be more into it. At that point, you got to remember we're all in our early 20s, maybe 22, 23 when all this was happening. So it was incredibly exciting. And Buddy was in it as much as the rest of us. Although Buddy was a more private person. I don't know if he necessarily felt comfortable with the amount of attention that was being paid to us. Just because he's a humble guy and he's a brilliant guy, but he just that wasn't his thing. He didn't care about being famous. The rest of us, I think, were a little intoxicated by it,
So what were those band meetings like when things are really starting to roll? Were you guys getting together and talking about this? Like, what are we supposed to do?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we had this thing. We got involved in this best unsigned band in America contest right when a lot of this stuff was happening, and it was sponsored by Ticketmaster. And at that time, Ticketmaster was the evil lord. Like Pearl Jam was against them and stuff. But we had entered this contest just trying to, I don't know. There was like, you could maybe win $500, which to us would be a fortune at that time.
Yeah.
So we entered this contest. We ended up making it past the first round in Phoenix. They flew us to Seattle.
Ooh.
We won that round, and then they flew us to LA to do the final. We won the whole damn thing.
Oh.
So this is at the same time, So we were excited. We thought we had something really good going, but
out of town.
Yeah. It was amazing to have that kind of experience away from your home base. It just seemed like people really responded to the music. And that, it was, of course, it was super flattering. And we were stoked, man. We were stoked. So we just thought we would hold out and try to get into South by Southwest, which is, the only reason we really knew about this music and media conference was that's where the Gin Blossoms got signed.
Mm-hmm.
So we applied to that same conference in Austin, Texas. That's where a lot of A&R people, which are the people that sign bands from labels, artists and repertoires, and that's what A&R stands for. Anyway, there would be a lot of these people there to see these young, hungry bands. And we got accepted to that. So, we're on cloud nine. We were having a ball.
Awesome.
But at the same time, there were some undercurrents that were starting to churn between Raj and Dust. And so it was, I don't know, it's a confusing time. The most exciting, lovely time of my life, but also a confusing time as well.
All right, how about this? Let's put a pin in that. First of all, we have Alan Lay says, "Hey, Brian." Does that name ring a bell?
Hey, Brian.
It does ring a bell. Alan is actually the guy that put me up when I first moved back to Arizona in 2018. He let me crash out at his place for a while. So love you, Alan.
So how about this, Brian? Would you be so, because we're pretty much at an hour at this point, and I know we have a couple questions from
Oh shit! Did we already make an
It
hour?
goes so fucking fast.
Brian, would you be so kind as just to do a part 2? I before we leave, I kind of want to get into your band
Okay.
as well. I definitely
Yes.
want to do that for people.
I'm very, very pleased to talk about Murphy's Outlaw.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Let me throw the picture up. We'll just put a whole pin in refreshment stuff. I only have one question before we do Murphy's Outlaw. Okay, Outlaw.
Okay.
When did you see this picture? And does this remind you of anything? This is a recent Saturday Night Live promotional picture. Here you go.
All right, the Foo Fighters under the flag.
Does this remind you of anything?
It does remind me of a couple of things, actually. The Refreshments did a very similar photo, as did the Who, which I think we bummed it.
Yep, you're right.
I didn't notice there was a Gerald Casale quote on that. You guys are
Right,
tight with Devo, huh?
Well-
He did the video.
He did the video?
Yeah, he did a video.
Right.
Oh no, wait, time out. He did the video for which song?
Which video? Who are you talking about? Which video?
Andy?
For you.
No, I thought it's a guy from Devo had made a quote on the cover.
Jerry Casale,
Yeah.
Recorded
the bass player. He was the bass player in Devo. He shot our first video for the Refreshments second album, a song called "Good Year for Bad Days."
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
Yes, we did work with the bass player from Devo.
That's fucking awesome.
Yes,
all right.
he was a very nice man.
Awesome.
We're gonna put a pin in all of that, and we're gonna talk about this Murphy's Outlaw, folks. And if you are visually turning in, you can find them at facebook.com/Murphy's Outlaw AZ. So how did this band come about? And that drummer, who's that guy?
The drummer is a guy named Dustin Denham, Dusty, and he is my let's see, how can I put it? I love the guy like a brother. He was the first drummer in the Refreshments, and he's just one of my best friends on the planet, and I'm so pleased to be working with him again because he's an amazing drummer and also an amazing singer. And I apologize, my nose is getting all plugged up here from my COVID infection. Anyway, Dusty, I love you, baby. Dusty Denham, first drummer from the Refreshments. And then also in this band, we have Jim Gerke, who was the lead singer of the Soul Mines, which was a big band in Tempe. They were one of the biggest bands that was looking to get out of here. I don't know why they didn't get their ticket. They should have. But anyway, Jim is amazing. He's an incredible guitar player, incredible singer. Jim Gerke is his name. He was also the singer that Buddy worked with, Buddy Edwards, of the Refreshments. He was Buddy's lead singer in the band that Buddy played in before the Refreshments.
Okay.
You say incestuous.
There's that network of incestuous.
It is. It really is. And then right now we have a gentleman named Drew Bowman playing bass guitar. And Drew Bowman is actually a guitar player, a total shredder guitar player. He used to be in a band signed to Metal Blade Records called Icon. I don't know if you guys remember Icon or not, but anyway, this kid is a shredder on guitar, but he's agreed to sit in with bass to be in our band, and he's amazing. He can sing like a bird, and he can play bass like a pro.
Awesome.
Bass is a wonderful instrument.
I love bass. In fact, I don't know if you guys can see over here, but I got my
I
bass.
see it. I see it.
Hey, by the way,
I also see that Fender Starcaster you have there.
Yeah, I just got that a couple days ago.
Pretty sweet.
okay, so the only one we can't see is the Gretsch. So can you lift that one up, please? And thank you. Okay.
Oh, wow.
This is actually an acoustic Gretsch. It's a Black Falcon acoustic.
Okay.
It's a beautiful guitar. I play this for my solo acoustic gigs now.
And the Les Paul behind you, your Randy, can you just talk about how did this come into your possession?
This is my main guitar right here.
It's beautiful.
It's a 1983 Randy Rhoads custom. I swapped out the pickups. I'm not going to tell you what that one is. This one's a Seymour Duncan JB, and
why won't you tell you what that one is? Why aren't you going to tell us?
NDA.
Because I just can't give that information away. I'm
Did
sorry.
you steal it? No.
I had it designed. It's my secret weapon. And
Okay, all right.
it's buttery and sweet, and I'm not going to tell you how I do it. So, but anyway, this guitar I've had in my possession since we recorded Wheelie.
Okay.
I call her Wheelie, and probably the favorite 4.5 pounds of wood I've ever owned.
Where did you first lay eyes on this Mrs. Wheelie over here?
She was hanging at a used guitar store. Actually, Rich Beck, he's a local Tempe guy. He's got a guitar. He's a luthier guitar Jedi kind of guy, and he had a store in Tempe years and years ago. Down there, right by Zia Records. It was right across the street there. And this was hanging on the wall. I saw it, and I bought it for, I want to say $600 at that time.
Mm.
And
90s.
there are certain instruments, there are certain entities in your life that you will see that you just know are going to work. When I saw this one, it called to me, and as soon as I got her in my hand, she's been with me ever since. And it's an amazing.
That's awesome.
You were so lucky, man, because
Your
I will
forever
take
guitar.
this. For those that aren't guitar players or are guitar players, back in the 90s, in 92, 91, you could go to a music store and there would be like Gibson Deluxes and like $500, $400. I mean, you could get these things great prices.
I remember having a chance to buy a Gibson Gold Top Les Paul for $500.
Oh my!
Right.
Because there were some neck problems, but fuck, I can fix that.
That's still one of my dream guitars.
Gold tops are another one of my faves too. I actually recorded Fizzy Fuzzy with a 1960 gold top.
Wow.
That's I mean, they really have a spirit in them. Wood is an organic material, and you can feel them. Like if you take the time to get to know them, you can play them. You can talk like a woman. You touch them right, they're gonna sing for you. You know,
Mhm.
They've been around for a long time. Even before I started playing guitar, I knew what a fucking Gibson was.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Les Pauls are one of the coolest looking guitars. I'll give them that by far. But I've tried to branch out a little bit to, explore different tones that are not my wheelhouse. Just to try to stretch myself out a little bit as a player, And I think that's a good thing to do as a guitar player, is to challenge yourself.
Necessary.
Especially coming from the sales manager of Reverend, I would say, yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Get down to Reverend, pick yourself up one of them sweet axes they got.
Check our shit out, man.
That's the real deal right there. Reverend's the real freaking deal, baby.
We're slowly getting that way.
I'm going to buy a guitar off you here after we get off the line.
It seems like I've been there my entire life.
You have, haven't you?
Green, how many years have you been at the
God,
shop?
over
Naylor
20
actually
years,
built
man.
him.
Over 20 years. We started out. I joined Naylor when we were in a back of a bicycle shop, a little fucking garage in the back of a bicycle shop.
That's me. That's punk rock, baby. That's where the real stuff comes from.
Yep. So I'm going to tell you guys this. We're going to. I want to give an honorable mention to Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers. Super. I mean, obviously Brian's friends. They've been super nice to me. I've got to hang out with these guys a couple times. Roger, PH, Nick, and Jim, all awesome guys. And they just like Murphy's Law. They do play Refreshments songs. They pay tribute to what their grassroots are. So if you get to see, if you're in Arizona, you see Brian or you see Roger, it's all a symbiotic appreciation for Refreshments.
Incest.
It's symbiotic. So we're gonna we have to stop only because we're a little past time. I do want to get to a couple questions really quick from the your fans at least.
Sure.
But the only thing I want to say is, like, we found out years ago. Oh my God! Yeah. Oh yeah, the Refreshments. You know, it was the two albums had a pretty monster impact on the world, and then it's just fast as it kind of came in, is just as fast as it kind of came out. With no offense to you, of course. I'm just saying that's kind of what happened.
No taking.
But there's been so many people like my buddy Al here in town that it's one of these oh my God moments, and then you start going down a rabbit hole, and like, oh my, this stuff stands the test of time. I've already told Brian the way he approaches guitar soloing and stuff is by far in my top list of favorite guitar players. So I'm very thankful and honored to be able to have this conversation.
As am I. That.
And we talked a little bit about your island records. This album right here, I'm sorry, this is one I would definitely take on my stranded island. It's just everything about it is.
The thing I love the most about that album is that I played on it, and I can still listen to it and go, "That's pretty fucking good."
That's
awesome.
awesome.
I don't cringe at. I'm like, "That's pretty goddamn good." If that's my pedigree to the world, then so be it. I'm pretty proud of that,
dude. And that's all you could ask for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a lucky man. I'm a lucky guitar player. I'm happy to be alive.
Before we get to these two questions, if you do make it back to Tennessee, and there's a chance that we can meet up in Nashville, I would like to go walk the strip, and when the band's done playing, us to walk up, and I just want you to go, "What the fuck did you ever do in your life musically?" You know what I mean? And just
oh snap!
Well, I'll tell you this much: anybody that's playing guitar for a living, I got ultimate respect for. So I doubt I would. I know. But I understand what you're saying.
If the money, maybe if there's enough cash.
Yeah, it's not an easy way to make a living. So
no.
I've done everything, inside and out, covers to originals to country to rock to alternative to. At the end of the day, I'm lucky to say that I've been able to put out more stuff than I'm proud of than I'm embarrassed by.
That's so awesome. Man.
I feel lucky to have played guitar for a living as long as I have.
All right, let's wrap this up with a few things. First of all, Julio says, "I'm looking forward to part 2. Thank you, Brian, and thanks to the rest of you." Alan Lay says, "Brian needs to be in the AZ Music Hall of Fame." No argument there. And for some reason, hey Zach, that's me with a K, not a CK.
That's not
What's
me.
up, Alan? Here's the first question that came across us. Here we go. I have a question for Brian. You are known for having a magical tone with your setup. Is it something that took a long time to find, or was it more serendipitous? Can you elaborate on that? This comes from Wade Spear.
Hey, Wade. How you doing, brother? I will tell you that I worked long and hard to establish my tone. basically what I did was I started to look at the tone path of a guitar tone. It starts with the wood of the guitar, followed by the pickup that you use, followed by the chain of effects it goes through, followed by the amp head you use, followed by the speakers you use. So I took a lot of time and I took a lot of care to try different things to get that buttered, like that sweet spot where the goosebump tone. I worked long and hard at it. And the fact that you recognize that the tone is good, it means the world to me. Thank you for that question. And I hope that answers it.
He says, thanks. This is after telling him that we're definitely going to ask the question. He says, thanks. I'm pumped for this episode. Brian is a cool dude, and that really makes time for his fans. And I've heard that many times. And we do have Fish Fisher in the chat as well saying,
Fish. Holy. What's up, man?
So we've had Fish on, and he's a friend of the show. And just, it's nice that all of us have a good friend.
Yes,
Fish is the man. He's a hell of a songwriter and a fine human being. I love the guy.
Last question of the night comes from Gary Watts. This seems like it's fishing for a story, so please, don't kill the messenger on this one.
Okay.
Ask Brian about the dead guy in Vegas.
Well, unfortunately, there's still an open FBI investigation there. I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say,
I will tell you the dead guy story. The Refreshments were on tour. We were playing at the Hard Rock, at the Joint at the Hard Rock Hotel. That's their concert venue. It's called the Joint there. It used to be. I don't know if it still is or not. But anyway, we were playing the Joint, and Vegas is one of my favorite places in all of America. Sin City. I feel at home there. But anyway, we got there in the morning that we rolled in. We parked in a parking lot behind a casino in the bus. And as we woke up, Buddy and I woke up really early that morning. It was about 7 in the morning, I guess. And we're like, let's go walk down to the strip and just see what Vegas is like at 7 in the morning. And as we came down the flight of stairs from the bus to the parking lot, about 5 feet in front of us was a line of police tape around a pickup truck, and there was a dead guy sitting at the wheel of the pickup.
Oh,
I mean, he was just, he obviously died.
Reminds me of my hometown.
Yeah,
now, wait a second.
He climbed in his pickup and called it quits. And
is this why you named the album Wheelie?
yeah, it's kind of a wheelie situation.
Oh yeah.
But I took it as a good omen. When you roll up in Vegas and the first thing you find is a corpse, you go put it all on red and roll the dice, baby.
Yeah, really, because you're
Oh
still
yeah.
You spin the wheel, I'll roll the bones.
Hell yeah.
Well, folks, I think that's just about it. We're at an hour 13 minutes. Unfortunately, we just scratched the
Take
surface.
the extra time.
It goes by so fast.
It really
We
It
just
does
want
go
to
by fast.
we want to give a shout out to your band. You guys have a
Murphy's
gig,
Outlaw, baby.
you have a gig coming up? Yes.
We do have a gig coming up. December 27th, Murphy's Outlaw will be playing at the Pedal House Brewery in Chandler, Arizona from 1 p.m. in the afternoon till 4 p.m. in the afternoon. It's outside on the patio, so the air is fresh. There will be no germs to consume.
I want to go, dude. How much do we have in Simple Blasphemy funds? I want to go.
We're gonna work this out.
$10.
Please.
Come on over, boys. I got you.
I want to
You
go.
guys are VIP.
Come on, we've been doing this for a long time. Let's go.
I know. So for anybody that's listening to the only audio version, you can find Brian's band at facebook.com/Murphy's Outlaw, MurphySoutLawaz, as in Arizona. You can check them out. He's got videos. It's so amazing to see some of these timeless songs still getting wrenched out on that Les Paul right behind him, even though you can't see it if you're listening to the audio.
You can imagine it.
Next time I'll play a few for you.
There you go.
Roger Clyne and the Peacemakers. I'm assuming there's going to be another day where you're going to join those guys on stage at Circus.
I'm really hoping this year is the 25th anniversary of Fizzy Fuzzy Big Buzzy. So I'm trying to round the guys up to do a reunion show for that.
Awesome.
We'll see. We'll see what happens with the COVID and all that. But I would love to reunite with those guys to celebrate 25 years of Fizzy Big Buzzy.
The only thing I could say as a side note is the 20-year reunion. I watched it in the form of like small video clips and pictures that just came on Facebook. But if there's any way that you guys do that people can't make it to Circus Maximus, if there's some video stuff, you know what I mean? Even if let's just say the shit got canceled because of COVID, which I think we're going to be resolving that hopefully soon. You guys should put something out. There's so many fans, and props to Roger for propping that up for the fans of the Refreshments, and also with you playing in Gatlinburg and everywhere else. That keeps that whole spirit of the album alive, right?
I thought it was a good record. I'm happy to be part of it, and I'm happy to keep it alive.
So with that, folks, please reach out, join the Murphy's Outlaw Facebook page, find Brian, give him some accolades or how you lost your virginity to one of these songs or whatever it is. Everybody loves these stories in with 1,000 words, please. And with that, we'll try to get Brian back on in the next couple months. But thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Andy, Zach, thanks, you guys.
It's been a pleasure. Hey, Brian, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes,
it's my pleasure.
We'll see you guys next week.
Hey, really quick. I just want to say